Hey everybody, and welcome to another RCT2 review. Today I have the great pleasure in being able to review Belle Isle by Andrew. This is a recent Spotlight winner on NE Designs, and is one of the highest rated parks ever, I think. 97.5 unanimous Spotlight winner, which is pretty impressive. So this is built by Andrew with a 5% share from Steve, 1% from G-Force, and then I also had 1% for contributing a coaster layout. But this is, for all intents and purposes, a solo park by Andrew, and in my opinion, and as the score reflects as well, it's one of the best parks in recent years, or maybe ever, to be honest. And I really think it's going to redefine the custom scenery theme park building in this game. It really does a lot of things that other parks haven't done, or just far better than they've done. So let's jump in and see why it's so good. I could spend hours on this park, and in fact, I already have. But we're gonna take a look at some of the highlights, and then I will leave you a link in the description of this video if you'd like to download it and check it out for yourself. So let's start here at the entrance. Immediately, you can kind of get some Disney vibes going on here, very kind of Victorian-esque architecture, a lot of little gingerbread detailing throughout this whole structure. Just a lot of really, really beautiful architecture throughout. So there's a couple of highlights for me as far as this goes. Some of the things that are done really, really well. The architecture is amazing, fabulously done. The pathwork is super, super well done. You can see all these great pathway designs, like this brick with the lines, this kind of radiating sunburst type pattern of the brick on brick. We've got the this little circular area underneath the gift shop here. Just the whole thing is just done so well. And the landscape too. Once we get into some of the park proper, we'll see just how well this landscaping is done. But the other thing that really strikes me that doesn't necessarily know, come to mind initially is how glitchless it is. As we become more and more accustomed to this pathway detailing and things like that in parks these days, I feel like we've learned to accept a certain amount of, Z fighting, where you have some little flashing, um, glitchy paths and details and lines and whatever else. But this park, more than really any other one that I can think of, does that almost without fail. There isn't glitching, and it's just done really, really well through a couple of perspective tricks and other things. Just it's incredibly well done. So outside the entrance here, we got a little snippet of parking lot. We've got a tram here with a drop-off point. Love these seating areas here, the hanging planters and all that. Coming up to our entrance point here, one of the things you'll notice too early on, and this will carry through the park, is these static peeps. This is a scenery piece that I've never really thought about using before, just because I always kind of wanted the motion instead of the real peeps and everything. But to be honest, it works really, really well to fill out the park, to make it seem more crowded in places that it needs to be more crowded, to make seating areas feel lived in. And honestly, this is one of the more unique features of everything that's just incredibly well done. Like, look at this group of people here, this group of folks in all the yellow shirts, clearly here for a tour, or this group here getting their picture taken at the front gate. Like, super, super cool little details that you can build in there and really tell a story with it. But great entrance here as we come through into our main street here. So on the first side, we're going to see this train. Train carries around pretty much the whole park using Space Case custom train pieces there. Lovely architecture. I really do like that. And getting into a couple of these circular elements here, which we're going to see a lot of those on the buildings. And really, that's one of my favorite parts of this, is half diagonals and using curves and things like that to really break the grid. That's been more of something that we've been going for throughout this game over the last 5 to 10 years, but it's reached its zenith, I think, at this point, where we're really seeing the the least amount of grid that we've ever seen. It's just incredibly well done with the pieces that are on hand and some new pieces that have been introduced. We cross these bridges here and we get over to our first of the big dark rides. This is our Haunted Mansion type ride. So you have some vibes from the Disney World in Florida, with this big covered canopies and everything, this nice archwork here, and just kind of this architecture that really matches the same overall look as the rest of the park, but has these kind of rougher around the edges detailing. throughout the space that gives it a little bit of that theme going on throughout the whole space. What's cool here to me are these show buildings, and also into some of this back of house detailing that we're going to see a lot of throughout the park. First of all, look at this half diagonal. Such a nice detail throughout this whole space. Now we don't have this just big boxy show building, and it is random in some sense, but it doesn't necessarily feel like it's arbitrary. Like it feels like an appropriate detail of a park. And this expands over here to this bridge or this tunnel where the train comes through, so very much Disneyland vibes going on there. And then also our back of house kind of maintenance bay here. You can see the coaster, or the not the coaster, but the vehicles for the Haunted Mansion here, Mystic Manor, just running around the whole space. So I guess not necessarily haunted, but Mystic Manor throughout. One of the other cool things that we'll see here in the back of houses, the excellent HVAC detailing. So you got all these DXAC units here on the roof with some HVAC ducting throughout, and it makes a lot of sense. And we'll see that as we go through a lot of the rest of the park too. We've got our parapet wall here that screens all of this, and it's in the right spot, it's in the right details, and all of that. The same thing here with this ground unit. So we've got a nice chiller unit here that's up on stilts as you typically see it, ducting out into the park itself. And then I do love this little detail where we have all this landscaping, and of course some of those leaves and things have blown up onto the roof here. So just nice little details. And two, it's very subtle here actually, but the texturing on the roof. So we have this kind of light to dark right here, but it just gives this whole big expanse some life versus what you would typically have with a solid color throughout the whole thing. So it's a very small detail, but I think it adds a lot to the overall viewing of the space. So let's back out and jump back into the park, where we've got a couple of great little rides and things here. So we've got our carousel here with a very, very beautiful canopy around it, this nice kind of centered dome, just nice detailing throughout, and just very cleanly done. I love this gazebo here for some, I guess, photo meet and greets and things, using these A-frame signs that Ace Fanatic built that are really quite nice. And then this hemispherical, or I guess half circle queue covering for the Sky Tower, which is also very nicely detailed on top with this kind of motor room up here, then this finial to our flashing light on top. Here's our first coaster as we get to. This is actually the one that I contributed. So this is the Jetstar 2. This layout I had done initially for head-to-head, done the supports on it and everything. And when Andrew was building this park, I had offered the layout up to him, and he was kind enough to accept and theme it incredibly well. So it's kind of neat. It's this great balance of a very themed park, but one that's going to use some more kind of off-the-shelf type coasters, or maybe more affordable coasters, and we'll see some of that a little later when we look at some of the other rides. But just really incorporating that very nicely into the park. From the ride selection, this park almost feels like it's in sort of the early 90s maybe. So it's sort of an interesting timeline as far as that goes, because you don't see any modern B&Ms, you don't see any Intamins, you don't see a lot of that. So there's a lot more classic type rides, which I appreciate. Love this little detail here, this half circle building, restrooms here on the side. Again, very Disney-esque. These covered umbrellas here that keep color changing throughout. And you can also see, I mentioned the landscaping earlier, how well these planters are done. Look at how well this goes from transitioning from open grass to kind of mulch planter, and then these flowers and bushes kind of throughout the whole thing. Just incredibly well done through the whole space. And then also, keep paying attention to those pathway details, like this sort of slate tan color into the brick. This brick even has different detailing on these little pie wedges here for the whole thing. So just very, very well done. The kind of fun trick with all this is this brick is actually a half tile down compared to the rest of the pathway. So it doesn't glitch because of that. And it's a perspective trick because it just goes up underneath of this planter. But I was dissecting the park earlier just to try and figure out how on earth it looks as good as it does. And that's a fun little trick there, I think, and one that I'm going to have to start playing around with, just because it makes it look so clean, and just the whole thing works incredibly well. Love this seating area here with these little curved details. Just very nice pathway designs and things like that. A little grab and go here. Our cable cars overhead. Not a super long cable car ride. Kind of reminds me of Cedar Points as far as that goes, but I think it's nice. Um, this is one of the most detailed rides that I've seen. You guys may know my Condor ride that I've done hacking tutorials for and kind of put in almost every one of my parks these days. Well, this blows every one of mine that I've ever done out of the water because it is just so gorgeous and detailed. Like, I love all these little details throughout the space. It looks like stained glass almost going up. So just super, super granular detail. Just little bits and pieces here that just look so good. Fantastic top piece on this, and a great queue along the curve as well. Just again, such a grid breaking design. Really well done throughout the whole thing. Over on this side, we got our Dumbo ride, as you would expect it to be. So this is the amazing flying elephants. We're very clearly avoiding some copyright there. It's not a Disney park. And this is a fun one. So this is the Electric Roller Racers, which is based off of Windjammer Surf Racers at Knott's Berry Farm. So this is a Togo dueling coaster, or at least that was meant to be. So interesting layout here for sure. Got these two loops and then kind of crisscrossing over each other here with the different trains. And I don't think these are sit-down trains. I wasn't sure if they try to do stand-up ones or not, but kind of high seating on the overall chassis and everything. Kind of interesting as far as that goes. Cool queue wraps around these couple trees, has some kind of nice flowy curves here, all the way underneath the coaster, then comes back into this pretty impressive station here. It's a cool look. Like, I would love to be dining here, looking across the water at this very detailed station, listening to the lift tilt chain motor on here, and just kind of seeing all those details. And then look at this entrance pylon, like such a cool theme to it. Here in this planter too, little statue and some lighting and everything going on the whole thing. So we'll bridge over to this guy, and this is another one of my favorite buildings in the park, because look at this. Look at this kind of rotunda element here. So you got this cool sort of stained colored glass. You've got these half diagonals, and just the whole thing sits really, really well. And then it's done again here in a smaller fashion with all of these roof peaks and roof gables coming out in 8 different directions. Great roof details and everything else. You've got the stair step that kind of takes from our seating wall here, wraps around itself, shoves a palm tree in the middle of it, and then carries on to this raised seating area around this tree. It just frames everything so well through the whole thing. So again, we've got our queue all the way through here, and then we've got a dark ride under here. So this is called Dream Flight, sort of the, I guess, Peter Pan-esque attraction. Again, we've got sort of a weird overall design for the show building. These raised sections, which kind of indicate maybe like a screen or something like that. There are interiors done, which I think is okay. Would have been neat to see a little bit of a cutaway, but I think just the details of the structure itself are plenty sufficient for the whole thing. But, you know, one thing to point out while we're looking at this is the pathway texture in the back of house. It's this sort of tan, more kind of concrete texture than the typical gray or black asphalt maybe. I know that's typically how I go, and this is really the first that I've seen this kind of a pick. And initially I didn't really like it, but it grew on me, you know, as I thought about it. It makes more sense that some of this is going to be concrete and, you know, have this more warmer tone, and it goes with the overall tone of the park too. I think this is just a nice kind of warm color palette throughout, but it's nice because the back of house isn't clean necessarily, but it's organized for sure. So you got all these great, like, you know, little details of trucks turning back here, and as we go elsewhere, we'll see like little pieces of trash like right here, and we'll see more of that as we, you know, circle around to other spots within the park. So this is sort of its own entity over here across this bridge. Lovely area. Would love to spend some time kind of hanging around this whole space. This is a cool detail here where they've cordoned off this space that wraps out to the back of house. Kind of a neat like operational choice from something that's already in progress. Going over onto this side, we're gonna pick up this beautiful car ride. Really well done. I'd maybe have gone to make one of the pieces more invisible on this track, just to kind of drive it through a little bit. You can kind of make one section more invisible to make it a little thinner, but it might glitch a little more perhaps, but I'm not quite sure. The key takeaway for me is this queue. Really love how subtle the elevation changes, going from this sort of entry gazebo up into this circular, again, rotunda type building with some overhang all around, and the cars going all the way around it, queuing back and forth, and then wrapping out and down here with this continuous kind of portico share type covering the whole way. So you got this just great arcade of columns and colonnade all the way down to the load area, and just super well done. Sort of classy looking old gasoline, gas station type building. And then another custom ride here, the Scrambler letter. I've actually don't think I've ever seen a custom Scrambler, and I'm really impressed with it. Like, it looks great. I'm gonna have to steal this. Actually, I'm gonna have to steal a lot of things in this park because there's just such nicely done details through the whole thing. Here's one of our larger coasters. Queue wraps all the way around here. So much to see. Kind of going on a journey for yourself in just the queue. This is an old Schwarzkopf coaster. So this is called Blitz right here. Patterned after Revolution at Magic Mountain. It's got the loop towards the far end of the course. We're using the mini coaster track with a backbone here of the single rail, which I think looks quite nice. Supports look great too. Big fan of those. Love this interaction with the queue. Frame rate's hurting a little bit here. Here's our loop using the new track pieces too that we got. So that worked out quite well actually. Wrapping around and then up in brakes. So very nice, very pretty, done super well. This is another fun one. This is called the Magician, and it has the old Bullet, which is now at Selva Magica in Mexico, Schwarzkopf layout. So it's a mirror image of that, where it's got the sort of backwards launch into a forwards wrap around helix, loop around the station, and then a reverse track that goes back the other direction. This one's hard to do in RCT, and Andrew's made some modifications here that make it a little bit easier, such as moving the loop outside of the station itself, so you can still get a very pretty station building in there. And just doing a very nice job overall in kind of making it look like it belongs in this area and just fits really well in space. But very unique piece of coaster history there, and it's kind of fun to see that. Another excellent restaurant building, and just around the way here we also have this very great Himalaya building. So again, this is sort of like Jetstar 2, where it's almost like carnival-esque rides plonked into an incredibly themed space, and done super well as far as that goes. Detail makes it look like it's meant to be here and meant to be sort of a permanent staple of this park. Really great planters throughout the space. Again, these fixed peeps really give this some life through the whole thing. We get over here to our wooden coaster. Again, we've got some park groups here. Got the red group, got the blue group hanging around. So cool little details as far as that goes. And then we have our wooden coaster here. This is using the Gerstlauer wooden coaster trains. So we've got 3 trains on the ride, which looks pretty good throughout the whole space. Big wooden coaster. Kind of has a vibe like a New Texas Giant or Mean Streak, perhaps, as far as that goes, where it's kind of large and encircling the queue. Got our service road around the back as well. A little more visible here than other places, but I think still screened pretty nicely through the whole thing. But good layout. Big fan of this layout. I think these triangular layouts are always cool in my opinion, just because we saw a couple of big ones, but in real life, but we never saw too many of these proliferate. We do have some footers. That's the word I'm looking for. Footers, and I actually do really like the color ground texture underneath of this. I think it's done very well. Obviously, no plants are probably going to grow in that kind of shade, so it's a very nicely detailed space. Again, cool back of house details throughout this whole area. I actually really like these These things here kind of look like a highway road railing as well. And then just some cool details here. Some of the looks like some flamingos there, dog and fisherman as well. So fun details throughout the whole space. Um, our log flume queue is right here. This is a very cool queue, the way that it kind of wraps around while climbing in elevation and then kind of drops down here as well before going up again. And again, very subtle elevation changes using that low slope diagonal, or not diagonal, but low slope pathway piece. Really appreciate the look of that. This one's also cool just in the way that these kind of trim and molding pieces fit around the coaster track here, or not coaster track, but log flume track, and really make it seem like it's sort of built into the ground. I always kind of wanted to be able to do that, and I've always found it a little challenging to do so. Um, so that's a cool detail that is done really cleanly too, to be honest. Um, there's a lot of really cool details on this. One of them is the dripping water here. Log flumes leak, all of them leak, and they dump water especially around the top and bottom of the drops, as well as kind of right here. And this is cool because it's been dropping here, so obviously there's some algae buildup underneath, and just some more of that underneath of the coaster here. The coaster again, the flume. Super cool detail again, just really nicely put together. Two drops on this flume, and it's a very believable kind of older arrow coaster. Gosh, again, coaster, but arrow flume type design, so it's just really well done. And again, look at this fantastic circular building here. Got the gable roofs sticking out, got all the great little details throughout the whole space, half diagonals, and this tower that just, again, a nice little seating area right here. And inside we've got the Carousel Club dinner theater. So this is cool because it's meant to be a dinner theater space, so you can kind of see this restaurant portion going on here, but then you also have this kind of theater portion and seating area over on this side as well. We've got our train station on this side, very reminiscent of Disneyland, with this kind of backdrop of a train station. That's super cool, very well done. And we're getting kind of back around to sort of our, yes, it's hard to call it a main street. I mean, right here is kind of our main street, which we'll kind of finish on. But these kind of great buildings surrounded by pathway. You've got a nice detailed space here that you can see from pretty well every side. So it's got themed very nicely here. What's cool about this one is the transition kind of between spaces here. And Disney does this very well. And I'm sure Andrew is familiar with it. So you can see right here, the red roof transitions into brown roof. The awnings transition into from green and straight, yellow and curved. The detailing gets different here as we jump across. Not necessarily obvious how the theme changes throughout the whole space, but there is a defined change there, and I think it's a very cool transition detail that's pretty subtle, and rightly so, because that's how Disney do it. So as we get over here, we got our custom carousel. Again, if you want to be able to do these, I have a tutorial for that on my tutorials playlist. Really love this fountain with the pathway details here. Look at all these great designs. So different colors here of the kind of compass rose going on and the circulars around it. And all of them have borders, and just all are done in an almost glitchless way. That's super well done. Great dining area here, order space that's got the kind of ordering areas on either side, some diagonal ones too. This is a super cool cart. I like this one. It's a very kind of Disney approach to have a themed awning that a cart is kind of stuck up underneath. Very nicely done, and little details. Do love this bridge as well with these light poles and everything. Actually, the light poles in general in this park are super well done. They're worth digging into and kind of removing parts and pieces of it to just see what's there. I spent a lot of time doing that in this park, just kind of removing scenery pieces, just how things got put together. So this is a cool one too, because this is another combo where we got the restaurant on this side, a lot of cool architecture, and then the main part of this show building is Enchanted Voyage, which is kind of what I'm going to assume is our Pirates of the Caribbean style attraction here. And honestly, the best part about this is the back of house, because it really takes a piece from what you would see at Disney or any larger developed park like a Universal as well. So we've got this great water basin here. All these water rides have retention ponds that can store all the water in the ride itself, so that they can evacuate all of that water somewhere, so they can do inspections and everything else during the evenings and when the ride is closed. But look at this right here, is super well done. Love all these pipes and designs and kind of armatures for the pipes. Just great all around. And then this section of pumps here. Love the use of the HVAC detail pieces as kind of the impellers for the pumps. Covered area, catwalks all around for inspections. Just the whole thing is done super well. Then we've got our high reach here, just again very nice. Same with our little forklift here. And then check this out. This is a loading dock, I guess, for the restaurant. And we have our tractor trailer truck, which is just angled down into the space. Super cool. I question how hard that might be to offload when it's at an angle, especially if something's on wheels. But I think the ability to pull this off in a way that looks clean and not at all silly, just hard to beat. And then too, like I said earlier, love this detailing, all this little trash and things like that, and there's unused signs and all sorts of things. I mean, I see this all the time at the park where I work, where you go into the back of house and there's just sort of this amalgamation of stuff that used to be in the front of house or used for events or temporary things or all of that. And it's just, collects around the sides there and just kind of gets cluttered. So very much a fan of that and just the overall details. Train detail here as well for our back areas. But let's keep on rolling and get to another one of these seating areas over here and eating areas. These are two different ones. We got the Garden Terrace Cafe on this side, and you can see on this side we have the Imperial House Buffet. So kind of vaguely Asian theme to it, which I appreciate. Nice little details here. Love this little arch for the actual entry. Very thematic doors and theming as well there. Again, the static beeps really making this work, giving life to all these things. I do love these doors. We've looked at those a few times now over, but they're just super well themed, very ornate, and just beautiful all around. This is a cool sign, Bayside Cafe, circles on either end. Big walk-up counter all the way around, has that very nice grab-and-go type vibe to it, almost kind of Cape Cod looking structure perhaps through the whole thing, and then a couple little vent stacks on top with the actual stuff coming out there and screened around with our parapet wall as well. This is a neat structure. Initially, it was a little hard to read in my opinion, but when you turn it on the other side, you can actually see it really well here. So this swing ride is raised up on platform basically, and there's a walkway around it underneath the whole thing, which is kind of cool because you've got all these great covered shaded seating areas, which would be excellent, for hot days for everybody guests just to hang out within that space. And then up on top, you've got the ride itself with this great curved canopy queue, shaded throughout. I think guests would love this park for all the shade it gives you. And then very subtle entrance, exit, stairs going up around to the whole thing. Super well done, and well put together. Great building here. Big fan of the different styles of architecture as well as the colors and details and things like that. When you make a larger building like this, a lot of times it's a single building that's meant to be looking like a bunch of smaller buildings making it up. So you've got your yellow one here, you've got kind of your red brick one here in the middle, and you've got this pink siding on this side with this little rotunda in front. You got this brown kind of almost mansion-esque thing going on here with the brown roof. You transition over into this side, and you've got this green building with all these kind of nice looking, almost stained glass-esque approaches here. And then you have this last one that kind of fits in the middle right here. All one building, but it all looks like, 7 or 8 different facades through the whole thing and transition quite nicely throughout. Another good little fountain here. A couple of games through the whole space. And bringing us over to our last coaster of the day, and this is turn of the century, so taking a page from Marriott's Great America in Illinois and California. Got a nice diagonal drop here, 2 loops up and into our mid-course brakes. So another arrow coaster here. So really that kind of old school coaster lineup like I talked about before. So Schwarzkopf's, you got arrows, you have kind of older style wooden coasters, like Cobb or something like that, and Togo. Um, so really eclectic and interesting mix overall, I think, but works really well. You know, I've always been a fan of parks that don't use mainstream coasters. Like I tend not to build a lot of B&Ms, not because I don't like them, but because I like doing weird coasters. And this is cool to me because it's a lot of, rides you might not expect otherwise. Again, cool theming throughout, sort of vaguely Asian-esque sign there, which is neat. And I really like this open air gift shop here that you can clearly see all the merchandising here, and got this still nice, very detailed roof structure overhead and everything. So it really looks nice. Got our teacups here on the island. That's a cool setting for it, in my opinion. Got our exit bridge and your entrance bridge here with a curved view around the whole thing. Um, Choice not to put the rail in for the vehicles to move on, which I actually think was a smart choice because you don't need to see that detail, to be honest. You know they're on a rail, you know that's what they're doing. I would rather see something like this, which is this super cool curved pathway detail. And I'm going to need to get some of these paths in my park because there's just a lot of interesting designs and details, and just it's done very well. Check out this clock tower, very neat. Also, this little information sign, again, super well done. These park directionals are cool. These scattered throughout the whole space. Last ride, I think, is our Intamin first generation drop tower. Kind of neat, and it gives a little bit of context about the history of and kind of timeline of this park. That this is our main street here, right in from our entrance, and the ride that was chosen to head out the end of Main Street to kind of take pride of place here is this our free fall ride. So clearly this is all put together in call it the 70s 80s time frame where in the early 80s when these rides were proliferating, that these were kind of hot stuff at the time. So they thought enough to make this the kind of center of attention here at the end of this main street. So cool to see this one. I built a non-working version in Washuzan Park, and I was pretty happy with how that one turned out. So it's neat to see this done in a working manner as well, and done pretty realistically too. Love the supports, very very nicely put together. We're seeing more of the same kind of detailing here. Love these glass covered canopies on these this building. So these 3 domes on either side, just really really nicely done. The smooth curves, balconies, and walkways outside the building, and then just these great overlooks and everything. So this nice curved seating area that overlooks the water. This seems like such a nice place to sit and have a drink and just look out across the water and enjoy the sound of this fountain while seeing off in the distance the flume and the coasters and everything like that. If you can envision yourself in the park and sitting there and enjoying it, I think it becomes a successful sign overall and super well done. Again, really well done landscape here. Not every piece of landscape or piece of grass has to be covered in something. So it's a good choice to leave all this open, but do it in such a way that you've got these little grass pieces, so it's a very subtle texture difference. So we're not going any kind of long stretch with either same texture or no texture. We're adding in different parts and pieces of these like little grass elements, and then you transition up into the mulch with the flowers and the bushes and the trees. So done in a very very nice way that complements the overall architecture of the space. So this bridge takes us back to this portion, and then here is our main street itself. Got some really cool, nice details like this theater marquee on this side. This is very reminiscent of Main Street Emporium at Disney World as well. Love this kind of tall colonnade in front with the flag, and then you turn around to this side and see our kind of bakery. I'm guessing this might be on the front. Let's see what it's called. It is the or Plaza Cafe. So it has the Plaza restaurant vibes from Disney World as well. That's up there on the right as you're coming into Magic Kingdom. in Disney World. So very nicely done there. This is a cool one. Look at this little cart. We've seen a lot of these carts over the years. I've done some myself. Robbie's done them, and you know, lots of people have done these carts, but this one's just very clean. Like the details there with these little eighth awnings, and you know, your standard trick for the popcorn with the flowers in the glass. I think that's always nice to see something like that still permeates through these days. But look at this pathway, like brick coming and swirling around this great um, icon statue that lights up and everything. Then you've got the secondary swirl here of this kind of larger tile slate. You've got this checkerboard on the side. You've got this great transition strip into this kind of, I guess, breezeway here, it looks like. And then your dividing line out here to the brick itself for the pathway. So just such a cool setup for pathway detailing and everything else. And again, it's relatively glitch free, and that's what still kind of floors me about the whole thing. I know I've become somewhat of a broken record as far as that goes, just my praises of this park, but I think that's testament to how well it's done. Love this little grab and go here with this awning coming out. I like that it's high enough that you can still see what's going on. You know, sometimes you have to make that play between realism and what you can and can't see in a park, and it always feels a little bit odd to create something that, you know, is really detailed. You really want to see it from the inside, but you can't because the roof is right there. This is just tall enough that it helps, you know, still work in the right scale, but be able to actually see what's going on underneath. Very nicely done there. Then just look at this entrance with the diagonals kind of spanning outwards, going from narrow here at the entrance of the building, wide here. Very inviting entrance. You see the same thing on this side. It comes into our restaurant here. So this is sort of like the hot dog corner. So yep, not Casey's Corner, Casey's Corner. So that's kind of funny as far as that goes. And then our Crystal Arcade on this side. So really love the light up and a half circle of glass there and everything else. And again, this is very nicely done as far as one continuous building, multiple facades for the whole thing. More of our trucks here doing our offload, and just super cool details for the structure of the building itself. Um, love the exposed conduit for these lights. That's absolutely a thing that you would see. Why run the conduit inside when, you know, it's in the back of house area? Nobody's going to see it. So this makes total sense to put something like that visible into the space. Lots of covers here for storage, for trash compactors, things like that. Fencing here that goes around the, you know, generator and things like that that you would see typically when getting serviced, apparently. So we got some cones around with the service vehicle. Just lots of little storytelling moments that nothing's clickable here, and you know how big of a fan I am about clickable stuff, but I don't need it. Like, this tells it all right here, and it's just cool to be able to imagine all the storylines and you know, kind of picture yourself there through all of those sorts of things. It is a cool structure, sort of kind of, I guess, hexagon looking piece here. Again, long counter, nice transition pavement around the whole thing. Just well done throughout the whole space. So that brings us full circle. We've wrapped around the whole park. Like I said, I could spend a long time talking about this park, and we already have. This is one of the longer videos here recently. But there's a lot more to say, but I don't need to say it. You can explore this park on your own and see. I think, you know, I'd be rehashing a lot of what I've already said. It's just so good and so detailed. But if you ever wanted a template for how to build a very nicely themed park and just smart and thoughtful park building, this is the place to look. This is going to absolutely change how I put together some of my parks and how I think about how I'm building my parks. You know, it's definitely expertly put together, and I think very well deserving of the rating. We are talking about this on the Discord, that these sorts of parks do two things. They either make you want to get after it again and just start building in a super detailed way, or they completely take the wind out of your sails. And you know, for me, that was the second one. Is I looked at this and just said, well, crap, I can't compete with this. But you know, the more I've looked at it, and the more I've kind of dug in here and pulled apart some of the details and seen the techniques and everything, it gets me excited about how to build and how to get through doing different things. You know, my parks aren't going to be super Disney themed esque like this, but there's still a lot of learnings that can be taken here just in terms of the mechanics of park building and kind of the thoughtfulness of pathway design and planters and landscaping and things like that. So there's a lot to learn and a lot to be done through this whole thing. So really, congratulations to Andrew for this win. Would really, really like to see what's next because I feel like, there's I'd love to see different kind of style. If there's any kind of one comment I'd have is that this Victorian and overall look carries through the whole darn thing. Like I would love to see this Enchanted Voyage have more of a nautical front to it, or more individual theming for different attractions. But I think that's not necessary with this sort of a park. But who knows? Maybe the next park is going to have it look like that. There's just so much to see and look at with this that makes me very excited to see what else is coming. So I think we'll call it right there. Again, the link is going to be in the description of the video, and you can download it yourself and take a look. You will need to open RCT2 to view this. I'll also put a link to that down below as well. But man, just nothing more to say because it is immaculate and it is one of the best parks that we've seen in a lot of years and probably years to come. We'll see how that goes though. But if more parks are up to this quality, then I'm here for it. So until next time, have a really great time and thank you very much for watching. I'll see you later.